What are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about having multiple monsters available to your game master or your dungeon master.
What?
Yeah,
What a
yes.
subject.
What it's
Something like that.
a subject that everyone should be fully familiar with. And this comes
That's
out
what I'm
of,
saying.
well, exactly. And this is going to be from an article that came out of one of my favorite magazines, Imagine Magazine, December 1983. Yes, Imagine Magazine, December 1983. It's an article by a man named Roger Musson. And I hope that Roger Musson is still with us because he writes some really cool stuff. But I think we should jump into it.
On that note. All right. What wisdom does Roger have to share with us today?
Roger has wisdom. Now, cool thing in Imagine Magazine back in the day, this was TSR's United Kingdom mouthpiece, if you will. And in that magazine, there was a section called Stirge Corner, and it was hyped as being a page for the not so experienced adventurer. But Roger Musson, who usually wrote this, he really got into some cool subjects, and I thought that you guys might find this one very interesting.
Yes,
He starts
sir.
it out. Oh, what's that?
No, nothing. Go ahead.
Okay, he starts off by saying a restricted number of monsters is more credible than a terrific variety. Then, an unfamiliar monster is something really new and different, and I agree with this entirely. In the bad old days before the coming of Imagine Magazine, an article appeared in the Players Association newsletter. This was the role-playing game Players Association newsletter, giving a brief history of the D&D game. In the course of this article, the author recounted with a sense of wonder how in the original pre-Greyhawk rule books, the little brown books, this person couldn't understand how there were less than 50 monsters in total for a DM to populate all of his dungeons with. How did anyone manage?
Sure. Yeah.
Roger goes on to say, however, that the answer is, as with any of us old people will tell you, that we managed all right, thank you very much. And today, of course, we are very much accustomed, today meaning 1983, today, of course, we are very much accustomed to the vast range of monsters provided not only by the Monster Manual and Fiend Folio tome. Monster Manual 2 has not come out at the time that this article is being written.
Wow, it's like time travel.
It is. That's exactly. But also the many monsters that have been published in a variety of magazines, amateur newsletters, and compendia of one sort or another. So, that's what they were accustomed to in 1983. There was a lot of monsters available. There were a lot of monsters available. But he recalls one stage of the hobby when it was common for DMs to compete in the number of monsters in their wandering monster tables. One would say, I use 10 level tables of 12 monsters each. Another would reply, that's nothing. I have 15 level tables of 20 monsters each, and so on. Nowadays, there seems little point to such competition. There is virtually no limit to the number of monsters that you can deploy, given a sufficiently comprehensive scanning of the available literature.
Keep talking to the people. I'm going to grab some.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need you. However, he brings up a really interesting point here. He says, personally, though, I think there was something to be said for the original restricted selection of monsters. For one thing, as players, we got to know the standard monsters pretty well. We found out what they like, how to deal with them, how not to deal with them, and so on. Ah, there you go. Kobolds, orcs, zombies, they were part of the familiar underground world. In a dungeon with a huge variety of monsters, there is a distinct possibility that players will virtually never meet the same monster twice, and therefore never gain familiarity with anything. Secondly, in the old days when we did come across an unfamiliar monster, perhaps a special creation of the Dungeon Master, then it was something really new and different. The party would at once perk up its attention. What is it? But if one continually meets new monsters and never the same one twice, then the excitement can very quickly wear off and each new monster becomes just another new monster. Thirdly, it must be said that a relatively restricted number of monsters in a dungeon is more credible than a terrific variety. This is an argument to be used with care since the average dungeon is not a very credible place at the best of times. Nevertheless, I prefer to slant things towards credibility if I can. And we've talked about that on the channel numerous times.
Many a time. Many a time.
You need to have some sort of credibility behind whatever it is that's peopling your dungeon or whatever your setting might happen to be.
Yep.
Roger continues by saying, what I am coming around to is this, that as Dungeon Master, you should not feel obliged to use all the monsters in the Monster Manual.
All of them right there.
Or there you go.
All three of them.
Or the Fiend Folio Tome just because they're there. You should feel perfectly free to pick and choose and make up your own wandering monster tables using just those monsters that you want, leaving out those that you do not like and putting in some of your own. There's much to be said, as I hope I have shown, for making up a fairly restricted list of 50 to 60 monsters at least to start with. This is particularly true if your players are novices. Let them cut their teeth on a handful of monsters they can come to recognize before you start throwing wild and wonderful at them. And I agree with this completely. I can't tell you how many times in the past when I used to use the random encounter tables, I'd roll the dice and think, well, no, that thing doesn't fit into my campaign. It doesn't belong here. So I would have to ignore it completely. And eventually I gave up using the random monster tables simply because they made no sense.
Yeah. They're a good tool to have, but
sure,
they shouldn't necessarily be your go-to.
Exactly. That's exactly right. There's something that can be very valuable, but your go-to, absolutely not. No. He goes on to say, cut the maniacal attacks. Another important point to be reckoned with here is this. It is not so much, this is very important, it is not so much the monster that counts as how you play it.
There it is.
As one friend of mine, a real veteran of the D&D game, veteran back in 1983, sagely remarked, you can have a lot of fun with an orc if you play it well. The key is to play monsters with the right degree of intelligence. Do not make everything attack maniacally on sight. Clever monsters will behave cleverly and perhaps try to trap or deceive the players rather than attack them. Half-witted monsters will behave half-wittedly, and perhaps players will be able to trick them. The more storyline you could get out of your monsters, the better. Is internecine strife amongst the orcs rampant? Is there a feud between goblins and goblins? Excuse me, let me start again. Is there a they have those? Is there a feud? Is there
just take a moment here.
A feud between kobolds and goblins that the players could exploit?
Yes.
Finally, on the subject of monsters, bear in mind that player characters have not read the monster manual. Back in the day, you were not supposed to as a player, and do not have access to the knowledge contained therein. We all know that, but even back in the day, everybody did it. Thus, they should not be really able to act on knowledge that stems from the fact that the player in question has read the monster manual. But we did anyway. However, sooner or later, one or more players will want to become DMs in their own right, and then they will necessarily know all the sorts of things which, as players, they should not really know. One way around this, in other words, presupposing what the monsters can or cannot do, is simply to alter all the statistics for your monsters. Do it all the time.
I know somebody who does that.
What's that?
I know somebody who does that.
Yeah, do you? Me? No.
Make them ungodly difficult to kill.
Or make them. I really like to tinker with their intelligence levels. That's my favorite thing to do, or their motivations. You could make the skeleton a fearsome 6 hit dice armor class 2 beast. I've done that. And degrade the beholder to a humble 1 hit dice armor class 7 creature with but a feeble 1 to 4 damage claw attack. This is absolutely fair and above board as long as you are consistent. Very important. That's Bert. That was the first thing that struck to mind was Bert. We have a beholder named Bert that we have in something that you guys can actually have access to if you're interested. This is absolutely fair and consistent and above board. This is absolutely fair and above board as long as you are consistent. There is no reason why players should be able to expect that a white in one DM's universe is the same as a white in some other DM's universe. But to chop and change, say to play skeletons the standard way and then suddenly introduce one with a level drain ability to keep players on their toes, that's actually kind of mean. And that's not something that I would do. There has to be logical consistency for that level draining skeleton to be there.
Yeah.
And we have had I have had, not so much you, but in the past, I have had players who have said, "No, what are you doing with that? This particular monster doesn't do that. They have this armor class. They do this damage. They don't do what you know who I'm talking about."
Yep.
And it was always just really that's great. And if you're playing in Gary Gygax's world, but you're not, you're playing in mine. And Roger Musson wraps this up by saying, "Whatever you do, if a player ever objects, but it says in the monster manual that the reply should be, yeah, but what does Thorgrim, your character, know about that?" So anyway,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this article about the way that about having a huge number of monsters available in your campaign world. Really, to me, it's always been region specific. There are certain parts of the world where some monsters exist. There are other places where they don't exist. And I've had monsters attack and drive other monsters away. It's not all, okay, we're all in one league together because we're chaotic evil or we're lawful evil or whatever. There are politics involved just in dealing with all of these different creatures that might inhabit a D&D world.
Yeah. And I think this would be a good time to take a quick look into the Fiend Folio. I opened this to a random page. How many of you have used the Grell before? Probably
Never.
very few of you.
Never.
I have never encountered a Grell, a Gorble, a Gold Bug, or a Gorilla Bear, any of the things that are on this page.
Nope.
And I think...
And I love the Fiend Folio. Don't get me wrong. I love
I'm
the
a
Fiend
big
Folio.
fan.
Yeah. And I have no problem with those 4 monsters that you mentioned. They're
Not at
great.
all.
They're cool.
They're
but
great.
they have never fit logically into my campaign.
And if you can find a spot where they exist, and I think this is where, especially I know you do a decent amount of this. If you want to incorporate other monsters that don't make sense, say in a dungeon in the middle of a mountain, incorporate other planes. Figure out a way for them to be there. Maybe there's a wizard down there, a lich down there that's conjuring things to bring them into wherever this place is. If you're going through these books and you find something cool, figure out a reason for it to be brought there that's legitimate. Don't force it if it doesn't fit.
Right.
But there are
Because your
creative ways
your players will feel it.
Yes.
If you try to shoehorn something in, because I've always wanted to have them face one of these. I've seen, back in the day, I used to do that kind of thing because I thought, these Githyanki are really cool. I got to throw some of those in there. And they are. But my players at the time were like, what? Where did this come from? And they could tell that I was only doing it because I thought it was cool, as opposed to, hey, this fits into what you guys are experiencing and trying to do.
Yeah. And I think it's always worth keeping in mind, like he was talking about, how did it get there? Why is it there? But what's it eating? Well, how is it making its money if it's interested in making money? And I mean, we talk about this with especially oceanic things all the time.
Yeah.
How is this sea monster sustaining itself based on calorie count? Like, these things have to think about it in as realistic a way as possible,
Right.
And it'll make it make way more sense, both while you're creating stuff and while your players are playing the game and making their way through. And that'll make it easier for them to plan out the decisions they want to make.
Very good point.
There's some
Very good
logical
point.
consistency to why the world exists. It'll make it easier for them and more fun for them.
Yep, very good point. I agree with that completely. It's that consistency that makes a world fun to play in, because it gives you the ability to plan ahead, which is really cool.
Yes. Which is
Anyway.
why I think if you're buying these manuals, start with the monster manual.
Yeah.
Everything you will need likely in your entire D&D career is in here. The monsters that are other ones, they're really cool, but you're probably not going to use them that often.
Yep. And you also reach a certain point where, great, I've become familiar with a lot of these things in the monster manual. I need to make up my own now.
Yeah.
And that's even more fun. But
Yeah.
but we digress. Anyway,
We do.
I just thought this was, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just thought that was interesting. Again, this is from Imagine Magazine, December of 1983. I'd only been playing the game for a few years at this point. But Roger Musson had a lot of good insight. What was that? How many?
42? 42 years ago?
42. Man. Wow. Okay. Anyway, that's all I've got. What else do we have to say? Anything?
Well, that's an excellent question there. We've got several things down in the description below that you can take a look at. If you're interested in following our Patreon or subscribing to our Patreon, go ahead. We're going to be doing a better job of getting some more content up there for our Patreon subscribers. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Should
And
be
for
back up, going, and active.
Yeah, and for those Patreon subscribers who have stayed with us throughout all of our crazy year 2025, we really appreciate you being
Thanks.
there. Yes.
We really appreciate it. We've also got, if you're interested in buying us a coffee, head down to Coffee if you want to support the channel. We really appreciate everybody who's done that. If you would like to take a look at our Kickstarters, anything active or in the past that we have done to get an idea of what kind of games we're trying to produce in the past, present, and future, go ahead and click the links down there. Check out our website, oldwarlockgames.com. All the information about whatever we're doing is down there. And other than that, play some games. Have
Also,
some fun.
we have a newsletter. If you want to sign up for our newsletter, let us know. Just send us an email saying at officialoldwarlock@gmail.com. That'll be in the description. And say, hey, sign me up for your newsletter. We have a huge number of people who are actually waiting on the next newsletter for Jim to create. But anyway, well, I'll get it soon. I want to have it there before Christmas. It's right now, almost the 1st of December, 2025. Hopefully I'll have a newsletter out real soon. Anyway, aside from that, what? I'm Jim.
I'm Alex.
Keep your sword on free, guys. We'll see you soon.
Toodaloo.